This famous scene from Band of Brothers shows an ambush that took place right here at this crossroads in Normandy. And while this action did actually happen, and some of the people depicted in the series were present at that time, the events that are shown are not entirely accurate. Now, whilst I love Band of Brothers, I don't want this video to be a Band of Brothers fanboy episode. And at the heart of this video is an attempt to portray the real people who took part in these events. The airborne soldiers who left their homes, who trained in England and jumped from planes behind enemy lines on that day of days. In this video, I'm going to take you to St. Mary-Église in Normandy, famous for its association with the US Airborne. I'll take you to the location where the ambush took place. I'll explain why it isn't Lieutenant Winters who led the way, but rather it was Lieutenant Colonel Robert Cole, who was later awarded the Medal of Honor for his attack on Carentan. And I'll explain how a US Army officer was killed at this crossroads, and it was very likely that he died from friendly fire. So we start off in St. Mary-Église, the crossroads town secured by the US Airborne on D-Day. It's famous for the paratrooper suspended from the church tower. And it's also known as the location where Lieutenant Dick Winters landed on D-Day. Now, most people agree that he landed in this location. From here, Lieutenant Winters made his way to the northern side of the town, where he collected other soldiers and progressed on their way towards their D-Day objectives. The series depicts a small group moving towards the crossroads where they set up a hasty ambush. Garnier, Malarkey, Hall, Winters, and Lipton. And here is the scene from the series in full.
Everyone okay? Sir. Next time I say wait for my command, you wait for my command, Sergeant. Yes, sir.
But in reality, Lieutenant Winters was likely at the rear of a mixed formation of potentially over 100 soldiers, with Lieutenant Colonel Robert Cole leading the way towards the front of the column. Now, this grouping moved towards the crossroads on their way to their respective D-Day objectives. We're now following that same route, heading towards the T-shaped junction that you can see up ahead where all the signs are. The group of perhaps over 100 soldiers would be spread out in smaller groups, and they'd be moving slowly but deliberately along this road and in the fields to the left and to the right of me. And when we get to the crossroads, they would have to secure it before they would head right, heading in a northeasterly direction. Now, if I look back at the way we've just come from, you can see that this road leads down to St. Mary-Église, and this is the junction where that small unit action took place, where the ambush in the series took place. It's remarkable, really. Down this road is the direction of the German supply column. It's the direction they came from. And we know that there was at least 3 horse and carts. So what do we know about the enemy? Well, let's take a closer look. This is the Artillery farmhouse, about 1 kilometre from the crossroads. It is a large, fortified Norman farmhouse with small windows, thick walls, the perfect defensive position, you might think. But for whatever reason, with the invasion happening all around them, the German garrison decided to send a supply convoy down this road, likely heading to somewhere close to Utah Beach. And it was here that they would come face to face with the Allies at the crossroads. So we know there were at least 3 horse and cart that made it to the crossroads, and some accounts say that there was actually a 4th cart. The cartwheels and the hooves would have made a lot of noise as they came down this track towards the Allies, giving them advance warning of what was coming. The paratroopers would have dived into the hedges and into the gateways that you can see all around me. A very hasty ambush had been set, but not everyone in the mixed formation would have been aware. The Allied column was spread out with at least 3 German carts coming down the road towards them, and who knows how many enemy soldiers could have been on those carts. Half of the force had not even made it to the junction yet, with Lieutenant Winters at the rear of the column. Lieutenant Colonel Cole had already passed the junction, and he was towards the front of the column. This was to be a meeting engagement where the enemy could stumble upon the Allies and where the Allies had not prepared for an attack. This is the worst time to meet the enemy. The crossroads became a kill zone, with soldiers on both sides of the road firing into the intersection at the German column. And there was little or no control. And it doesn't take a military genius to see what was going to happen next. Now, the really sad thing, which isn't covered in the book or in the series, was the death of a US paratrooper, Major John Vaughan of Indianapolis. He was a former policeman and he'd volunteered to join when the war started. He was the S4 or the logistics officer for the 502nd PIR. And he was very likely killed by friendly fire at this crossroads when he was stood near one of the carts. It is believed he died while approaching a cart by this field entrance on the right-hand side, and he was carrying his police revolver at the time. Now, in this newspaper clipping I found, it shows that John was 32 years old when he died. I managed to find his address, his wife's name, and I also found that he had 2 children. And this was his house at 619 East 39th Street, Indianapolis. And there would be a time when he closed that door and he walked down those steps for the very last time. I found that his wife was called Estrella, and he had a 5-year-old daughter called Suzanne, and he had an 18-month-old son called Stephen. Now, Major Vaughan is of course just one of the many casualties to occur on D-Day and indeed during the whole war, but I think it really brings it home when you see where that person lived and you see their families. Richard Ladd was a soldier at the crossroads that night as well, and he recalls how one of the carts had managed to turn around and was heading back down the road towards Artillery. He says he and another soldier with a very thick Philadelphia accent, possibly Wild Bill Garnier, chased Germans down this road, firing at a group of enemy soldiers around the corner. He says they were chewed out by a US officer for their poor noise discipline and for firing unnecessarily at every German they saw. Could this be Lieutenant Winters shouting at Garnier just like we see in the series? So I'm now stood on the bank overlooking the ambush location, which really was the site of a meeting engagement, not a true ambush. They didn't have time to set up a deliberate ambush, and the soldiers on both sides of the road appears to me as though there was a lack of control, which may have resulted in the death of Major Vaughan by friendly fire. Now, this is not to criticise. These things do happen in war, but it did get me thinking, how would we plan an ambush on a crossroads like this today? Well, I'm going to show you what the laydown might look like, but I'm not going to go into the phased detail of a deliberate ambush. But we will look at the security groups or the cut-off groups to interdict these roads, which you can see coming in towards the intersection. So first, we would identify our assault elements and the planned kill zone. These should not oppose each other, and they should cover by fire the length of the kill zone. Next, we set out our security groups or our cut-off groups, and these act as control points should the enemy fight through the kill zone, but they also serve as early warning of the approaching target. Next, these security groups also protect the assault formation and prevent enemy infiltration along these roads. They provide security required for the assault element. Now, as I've already said, the Allies who were here that night did not have time to plan a deliberate ambush. They disrupted an enemy resupply of the forward defensive positions, meaning that those enemy would not be able to hold out in their positions. So maybe these carts had ammunition to those defensive positions. We know that there was milk and bread and other food goods, but they may well have had other supplies. It's been an absolute privilege to be here and to see this location, and I've really enjoyed sharing this story with you. But I could not share this story without the input of who I think is the best Normandy historian out there, Mr. Paul Woodedge. So go and check out his channel at World War II TV. This is only a sample of the knowledge that he has on this action, and I certainly haven't done it justice here. But if you did enjoy this story and you like stories just like this one, then why not check out my other videos on World War II in Normandy and other parts of Europe, such as this one, which I'm showing you right now, of the Allied landings on Utah Beach. I'll leave a link in the video for you to go and check it out.
This is Robert St. John,
Until next time.
NBC Newsroom in New York. Ladies and gentlemen, we may be approaching a fateful hour. All night long, bulletins have been pouring in from Berlin, claiming that D-Day is here, claiming that the invasion of Western Europe has begun. British-American landing operations against the western coast of Europe from the sea and from the air are stretching over the entire area between Cherbourg and the Hound, a distance of about 60 miles. I repeat, there is no confirmation.